The complete works of Swami Vivekananda, Samkhya and Vedanta, Part 1. I shall give you a resume of the Samkhya philosophy through which we are going. We in this lecture want to find out what its defects are and where Vedanta comes in and supplements it. You must remember that according to Samkhya philosophy, nature is the cause of all manifestations, and we call thought, intellect, reason, love, hatred, touch, taste, and matter. Everything is from nature. This nature consists of three sorts of elements called sattva, rajas, and tamas. These are not qualities but elements, the materials out of which the whole universe is evolved. In the beginning of the cycle, these remain in equilibrium, and when creation comes, they begin to combine and recombine and manifest as the universe. The first manifestation is what the Sankhya call the Mahat or intelligence, and out of that comes consciousness. According to Sankhya, there is an element, and out of consciousness are evolved manas or mind, the organs of the senses, and the tanmatras. All the fine particles are evolved from consciousness, and out of these fine particles come to the gross elements which we call matter. The tanmatras cannot be perceived, but when they become gross particles, we can feel and sense them. The chitta, in its threefold function of intelligence, consciousness, and mind, works and manufactures the forces called prana. You must at once get rid of the idea of that prana is breath. Breath is one effect of prana. By prana are meant the nervous forces governing and moving the whole of body, which also manifest themselves as thought. The foremost and most obvious manifestation of prana is the breathing motion. Prana acts upon air and not air upon it. Controlling the breathing motion is called pranayama. Pranayama is practiced to get mastery over this motion. The end is not merely to control the breath or to make the lungs strong. That is delsate, not pranayama. These pranas are the vital forces which manipulate the whole body, while they in their turn are manipulated by other organs in the body. So far, so good. The psychology is very clear and most precise, and yet it is the oldest rational thought in the world. Wherever there is any philosophy or rational thought, it owes something or the other to Kapila. Pythagoras learnt it in India and taught it in Greece. Later on, Plato got an inkling of it, and still later, the Gnostics carried the thought to Alexandria, and from there it came to Europe. So wherever there is an attempt at psychology or philosophy, the great father in it is this man, Kapila. So far we have seen that his psychology is wonderful, but we shall have to differ with him on some points as we go on. We find that the basic principle on which Kapila works is evolution. He makes one thing evolve out of another, because his very definition of causation is the cause reproduced in another form. And because the whole universe, as so far as we see it, is progressive and evolving, we see clay in another form, we call it a pitcher. Clay was the cause and the pitcher was the effect. Beyond this, we cannot have any idea of causation. Thus, this whole universe is evolved out of material, out of Prakriti or nature. Therefore, the universe cannot be called essentially different from its cause. According to Kapila, from the undifferentiated nature to thought or intellect, not one of them is what he calls the enjoyer or enlightener. Just as in a lump of clay, so is a lump of mind. by itself the mind has no light, but it sees its reasons. Therefore, there must be someone behind it whose light is percolating through Mahat and consciousness and subsequent modifications, and this is what Kapila calls Purusha, the self of the Vedantin. According to Kapila, the Purusha is a simple entity, not a compound. He is immaterial, the only one who is immaterial, and all these various manifestations are material. I see a blackboard. First, the external instruments will bring the sensation to the nerve center, to the Indriya according to Kapila. From the center, it will go to the mind and make an impression. The mind will present it to the Buddhi, but Buddhi cannot act. The action comes, as it were, in it, from the Purusha behind. These, so to speak, are all his servants, bringing the sensations to him, and he, as it were, gives the orders, reacts, is the enjoyer, the perceiver, the real one, the king on his throne, the self of man, who is immaterial. Because he is immaterial, it necessarily follows that he must be infinite. He cannot have any limitation whatsoever. Each one of the Purushas is omnipresent. Each one of us is omnipresent. But we can act only through the Linga Sharira, the fine body. The mind, the self-consciousness, the organs and the vital forces compose the fine body or sheath, what in Christian philosophy is called the spiritual body of man. It is this body that gets salvation or punishment or heaven, that incarnates or reincarnates, because we see from the very beginning that the going and the coming of the Purusha are soul are impossible. Motion means going and coming. And what goes or comes from one place to another cannot be omnipresent. Thus far we see from Kapila's psychology that the soul is infinite and that the soul is the only thing which is not composed of nature. He is the only one that is outside of nature. But he has got bound by nature apparently. Nature is around him and he has identified himself with it. He thinks, I am the Linga Sharira. I am the gross matter, the gross body. And as such he enjoys pleasure and pain, but they do not really belong to him. They belong to this Linga Sharira or the fine body. The meditative state is called always the highest state by the yogi, when it is neither a passive nor an active state. In it you approach nearest to the Purusha. It is the witness of everything, the eternal witness of all work, but it takes no fruits from any work. As the sun is the cause of sight in every eye, but it is not affected by any defects in the eye, or as when a crystal has red or blue flowers, and yet it is neither. So also the soul is neither passive nor active, it is beyond. The nearest way to expressing the state of the soul is that it is meditation. This is Sankhya philosophy.